Hello, everyone. Today I'm sharing my research on compassion in the Bible and theological scholarship. This topic explores how compassion is defined, practiced, and expected of us through both scripture and theology, especially as we think about what it means to live compassionately in our own lives. Compassion goes beyond empathy. It involves a desire to act and relieve suffering. In the Bible, compassion is a core part of who God is. He shows mercy to his people even when they fail him. Theologically, compassion is described as a full-body response, heart, mind, and will, pushing us to help others, not just feel for them. It's closely related to ideas like love, mercy, and grace. In the Old Testament, compassion shows up in stories like Hosea, where God stays faithful to his people despite their unfaithfulness. In the New Testament, Jesus demonstrates compassion constantly, through healing, forgiving, and especially in parables like the Good Samaritan. The theological view reminds us that true compassion involves suffering alongside others, offering mercy without judgment, and even extending love to our enemies. Writers also connect compassion to tolerance, justice, and the health of the whole community. So what does this mean for us? Compassion is something that we live out through our actions. It doesn't stop with our friends or people who are easy to love. It includes strangers, enemies, and those who are different from us as well. The Bible doesn't treat compassion as optional. It's a central part of what it means to be a follower of God. And when we reflect God's love through compassion, we create space for healing, justice, and spiritual growth, not just for others, but also for ourselves. Compassion in nursing goes beyond empathy. It's the desire to actively relieve suffering. According to Watson's theory of caring science, compassionate care involves addressing not just physical health, but also the psychological and spiritual needs of the patient. Unfortunately, as health care becomes more profit-driven, the spiritual and emotional aspects of care have been pushed aside. There's also a gap between recognizing the value of compassion and knowing how to teach it or implement it in practice. Nurses demonstrate compassion through presence, listening, and responsiveness, even when communication is limited. In high-intensity environments like the ICU, where trauma and quick decision-making are constant, compassion must be both thoughtful and adaptive. It involves respecting each patient's background and beliefs, but it's also influenced by the nurse's emotional state and external stressors. Sometimes nurses struggle to maintain patience, especially with verbally abusive patients or those with substance use disorders or what have you, yet compassion remains critical. But, compassion has a cost. Nurses frequently experience compassion fatigue, which is a buildup of stress and emotional exhaustion that can lead to burnout. Organizational demands for efficiency often contradict the emotional labor expected of nurses. The COVID-19 pandemic only amplified this, with more nurses feeling unsupported and emotionally overwhelmed. Compassionate deception, like using placebos or filtering difficult information out for the patient, is sometimes used with good intent, but it's a little ethically complex and requires careful consideration. Nurses deserve compassion too. As caregivers, we face trauma that can challenge our identity and sense of purpose. When support is lacking, we risk sacrificing our own well-being to keep going. Research suggests peer support, counseling, and institutional flexibility can help, but true change requires a shift in workplace culture. Compassion needs to be systemic. We can't just give from what we don't have. We need to source from that as well. Caring for ourselves is essential as well, and if we're going to keep caring for others, that's really important. In the ICU, compassion isn't just about being kind. It's a spiritual act rooted in the human desire to relieve suffering. Unlike empathy, compassion calls for action. Spirituality helps patients and nurses alike find meaning amid suffering, and because nurses care for the whole person, it's essential that we understand and address that spiritual dimension especially in the high-stress environments like the ICUs or emergency rooms and whatnot. From a theological perspective, compassion reflects the mercy of God who acts out of love, even across social and moral boundaries. The nursing view also sees compassion as central, but not like automatic. It needs to be practiced, nurtured, and protected from being worn down. Whether religious or not, both approaches agree. Religious or spiritual, compassion is going to be a skill rooted in presence, intentionality, and a deep respect for human dignity. Unfortunately, compassion often gets lost in the ICU due to systemic challenges such as staff shortages, increased patient loads, and a lack of training in spiritual care. Nurses may be the only ones positioned to offer this kind of care, yet they may not feel equipped enough. Collaborating with the chaplains, clergy, and families help make sure that patients' spiritual needs are not overlooked. But remember, it takes a team to support both the patient and the provider, as in our own well-being. Finally, compassion must also mean justice. Feminist and liberation theologies and ideologies remind us that systems of care are shaped by power, which is they're controlled by the patriarchy, and that we must actively include those who have been overlooked or oppressed in these decisions. That not only includes the patients, but also our coworkers, families, or even really any stranger we meet on the street. As nurses, we stand at the intersection of many roles, extending compassion to everyone in and outside of the ICU. It's not just a calling, but it's a way to help heal the world. Thank you.